So we're just gonna jump right into them. Right off the bat, if you're wondering if they're impressive, like almost every other YouTuber has reported, yes, they are impressive for their size. Don't expect them to be beating out larger bookshelf speakers. In most cases, that's fine. They're much smaller. For their size and what they got going on, they do very well. But first, let's grab a tape measure here. Just to kind of give you guys an idea. I mean, that's my hand on the front. Overall, they're only about 9 inches tall, about 5 wide, about 8.5 deep. So, I mean, you could look that up, but. And then we'll run down some specs here and get them out of the way, and then we can start getting our paws on them and looking at them. 4-inch coated paper, rubber surround woofer, 3/4-inch silk dome tweeter, 18 decibel per octave crossover, which is a third order crossover, which I'll get back to later why that's a good thing. Frequency response on these, 50 hertz to 20 kilohertz, which is really good for their size as well. Impedance, they list 4-8 ohms. I'm not sure why they do this. Just probably assume, or to let people know that these will work fine with 4 or 8 amplifiers rated 4 or 8 ohms. I tested them. Turn that down for a second. I tested them with a multimeter, and they tested out at 3.5 ohms, which is normal. A lot of speakers don't actually test what they put on the sticker on the back. Sensitivity, 83 decibels for 1 watt per 1 meter, which is not good. That's really low. I would say an average speaker or decent rating is probably around 87 to 89 dB sensitivity. So 83 is quite low, which is just basically going to mean you're going to need more power to get these things going. They rate them 15 to 100 watts, which is fine, whatever. So let's move on. Magnetic grills pop right off. You can see they have these little pads here that prevent them from scratching the front here. And these have a very, I'm just going to say a very professional look. The dark, the dark grills, the very dark vinyl wrap, wood vinyl wrap, and I don't know what I would call this material, but it is a very, transparent fabric. Very, anyway, let's just set that there. Oh, a closer look on the Micca logo. Well, that one's just a tad crooked, which most people wouldn't notice, but I would, because I'm OCD like that. So yeah. Alright. Yes, they are smaller than I thought they would be. I should have known because I've watched a bunch of videos on them, but it's just one of those things you find, you get them in person and they're much smaller than I thought they'd be. They're this very rounded look, on the corners. Kind of give them their own unique look, having that rounded style. Very dark brown wood veneer or wood vinyl. I don't know what you'd call it. It's not really walnut or anything. It's just simulated wood. Looks good though. Let's get up front here. It's 3/4-inch silk dome tweeter. I believe this is similar or the same one they use in the MB42 and MB42X. It's just got a different face plate, and I believe it is plastic, which is fine, I guess. And then you can kind of see through the diaphragm of the tweeter, which is some soft domes are that way and some aren't. There you go. You can see the light shining through and hitting the metal behind the diaphragm. But look at this guy. Talk about meat and potatoes. That is a girthy 4-inch woofer. My goodness. They really wanted to get as much bass as they could out of this small enclosure. And to get as much bass as you can out of any driver, especially small drivers, you're going to need excursion. You're going to need to move as much air as you can. And I'm assuming this guy can move some air for a 4-inch woofer. He's not going to keep up with a 6.5 or probably even some 5 1/4, but he's going to probably do good for his size because that is a meaty 4-inch woofer. And then nice soft rubber surround. Oh, anything else? Alright, let's just go around back. Micca Reference Series RB42, blah blah blah, made in China. And nice flared port there. I don't know if I get the light hitting there. Flared plastic end with a cardboard tube as usual. Let me see here. Get this light in there. Yeah, you can kind of see. It doesn't really matter as long as it's assembled properly. Having the plastic flare with the cardboard tube usually doesn't hurt anything. And then we'll go a little further south to the binding posts. More unique binding terminal cup here with some pretty nice binding posts in it. But what we have to do is we'll set this down right here. We're going to grab some banana plugs as usual. A good quality banana plug and a more generic standard banana plug. So we'll start with the standard generic one. It's smaller, shorter, and this one I'd say is okay, but it is a much shorter banana plug. As far as depth, it's in most of the way. It's okay. It should be pretty solid. You're not going to see these on too many wires though. These are just cheap. They work really good, but they're cheap, just generic banana plugs. Most aftermarket cables are going to have something more like this, a much higher quality, longer plug. Now these, yeah, just like all these other speakers I've reviewed, these binding posts, especially for a reference speaker, Micca, these binding posts are cheap binding posts. These should be deeper than that. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with all these cheap binding posts, but they all appear to be this shallow. And I don't know why that's a thing on all these. And these really shouldn't even be considered budget necessarily, because for the size of these speakers and a 4-inch driver, these are priced to be pretty decent speakers. If it was the MB42 or 42Xs, fine, whatever. But these are kind of supposed to be moving up the ladder now. It's time to get serious, but yet they're still using the cheap banana plugs. And I've showed this in other videos. This is a Dahlquist terminal plate with some high quality binding posts. And as you can see, the binding post is supposed to go all the way in, so it's fully supported. Really good connection. Something like this, if you have a 10 or 12 gauge nice heavy wire and something on this plugged in and it's only going in halfway and that wire's hanging on here, it's putting a lot of stress on something that's only halfway in. So it's just, it probably isn't going to hurt anything. It just doesn't sit well with me because it's such a simple something that could be simply avoided by just using slightly better binding posts. Now I think we can get some tools and have a look on the inside, huh? Okay, got a bit. Now start pulling screws out and let's have a look on the inside of these things. If you're wondering, this is going to go a lot like my other videos where we talk about them a little bit. We're going to look at the inside, and once we're done with that, there'll be a part 2 video where we listen to them and possibly compare them to other speakers. So if you're interested in that, seeing how these compare to some other top dog budget speakers, stick around for part 2 of this video. Alright, we're just going to need one of these. Yeah, we'll just set the other one back here. Some of the stuff out of the way. Okay. I guess we can start with the tweeter if we can get underneath it. There we go. We'll start with the woofer. There we go. Ready? Woo! Oh yeah, he's a meaty devil. Good size magnet. Stamped steel frame. That's, like I've said in other videos, super common on mass-produced speakers. Obviously, they're gonna stamp these things out as fast as they can. Decent gauge wire. We're not seeing little dinky 20-22 gauge wire, so that's good. Let's see if we can wiggle these off. Alright, that's off. Now we can get this closer up here. Coated paper cone. It's got some good weight to it, obviously. You can see it's got a decent sized magnet on it. Just, Micca and their part number. Not really seeing vented pole piece, which is good. This thing's going to be moving a lot of air. You don't want to get air. I believe it's to prevent air from getting trapped behind the dust cap inside the voice coil. It's going to let it breathe. I don't know if you can see up in there, but it's a paper cone. Where's my flashlight? Treated on the front side. There's nothing wrong with paper cone. There's a lot of there you go, you can see it. There's a lot of nice speakers that use paper cones. Good heavy leads. Overall, I'm going to say this is a well-made 4-inch woofer. Good quality 4-inch woofer. Let's see if we can pop the tweeter out here. What the heck? Oops, there we go. Oh, there's the gasket. Oh, I see. We'll set the gasket over there. Holy cow. Jeez, Micca. Okay. Those were not locking terminals. If they were, they are. They just didn't lock. They didn't clip in to these little holes here. But what you see from the front, what it actually is. This is a testament to how good a cheap tweeter can sound, because this is not a high-end tweeter. But the proper crossover, proper design engineering, you can get a lot out of a budget speaker. So there you go. Tiny little tweeter. And I'll give them, I've listened to it. This tweeter can throw some clarity and detail. I'm literally surprised that this is all that's back there. That's quite impressive. Anyway, like even this. Here's a typical, aftermarket tweeter. 1-inch soft dome tweeter. Look at the difference. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah. You may not be able to notice the difference there, but So the fact that this thing sounds as good as it does, kudos. Now, what I find interesting, because I've never done this, I can't believe, I mean, they get away with it because this tweeter is so tiny, but you see that flare end right there? Where's the... You seen that? That's the port for the rear. Holy cow. I did not see that coming. That sucker is right up on the back of the tweeter. When port tuning this, they probably to deal with the high excursion of the woofer, they probably had to make the port fairly long, obviously, and they really pushed it to the limit. As it says, it does say they are 3/4 inch MDF, and that is correct. I can tell just by looking at this is 3/4 inch MDF. These are very solid cabinets. Being so small as well, and these angles or whatever sides being so narrow, there's not really much room for bracing. I mean, they could have maybe ran a single brace through the middle here, side to side, maybe right across the middle in here. Ugh. I'm always just in the way. Yeah, right across in here, side to side, from wall to wall. If you wanted to, you could grab a little chunk of wood, a little doll or something, glued in there side to side. Probably not necessary, because this is all pretty thick construction. But, yeah, that port, oh my gosh. I can't believe that is just right there. I mean, it's flared. But, man, that is... I can't believe that. Set that back in there for a second. Yeah, that port is... I mean, I was getting a little bit of chuffing or port noise velocity, and I didn't know if it was from an air leak or something. And, man, you get these things this woofer really going. That port being so close to the back of the tweeter might be almost starving it for air. Airflow, I should say, in and out. So, whew. Alright, let's just look. Let's pull this wire out. There's a crossover. Now, online it said they were filled with the proper amount of polyfill. I don't see any polyfill in there. There's some covering on the wires, which most companies do for whatever reason, but no polyfill. Which I'm kind of surprised. Let's, excuse me, let's pull off the backs. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they could have got away with 2 shorter ports. I mean, it might have increased the price a tad, but I am just flabbergasted by that port. Okay, there we got the cabinet out on its own. Alright, here's the brain. And it's a crossover system mounted on, obviously, to the terminal cup. As stated in the documents, or whatever specs on these speakers, you use nice film capacitors, audio grade resistors, air core. This is different. I thought the picture showed 3 air core inductors. This is an iron core inductor. And these are air core inductors. These are electrolytic capacitors. I mean, I can't tell you how this crossover is laid out just by staring at the circuit board here real quick, but I'm assuming that, and they said there is some level matching going on with the tweeter, so I'm assuming they have an L pad on the tweeter to bring it down, bring the sensitivity of the tweeter down to match the woofer, because if this woofer has a sensitivity of, say, 83 dB per 1 watt, and this has a sensitivity of 85 per 1 watt, if you don't balance that out with an L pad, the tweeter is going to be noticeably louder than the woofer. It's not going to sound right. So they would have to put an L pad of, say, negative 3 dB to bring the tweeter down to match the woofer. That could be what one of these electrolytics is. Otherwise, I'm assuming the iron core inductor and this other electrolytic capacitor on the woofer network, because I believe the woofer is less sensitive to the components, where on the tweeter you're going to want definitely have the premium components. So and it's a third order 18 decibel per octave crossover, so it just basically means the slope is gonna it's gonna cut the frequency off 18 decibels every octave, so it's going to create a nice steep slope. So you want this thing cut off at 2000 hertz. Once it gets to 2000, it's going to cut it off real steep. It's very hard to explain this because I don't know if people, I mean, I understand it, but I don't know if people are listening or understanding or not. But basically, the higher the crossover order, first order, second order, third order, fourth order, the higher the order, the steeper the slope, the less overlap of the frequencies. Because even on a lower order network, when you cross it over, a lot of the frequencies past where you want are still going to be there. I don't know. Basically, this crossover is going to have a lot to do with the clarity of these speakers. Having a third order on the woofer and the tweeter is gonna, I can't talk, is gonna create that clean openness. It's gonna be responsible for a lot of the sound quality of these speakers. It's been done many times where people will take a lower quality speaker and put in a decent crossover, or replace a budget crossover or a factory crossover with a much better crossover, and it can totally transform a speaker. So we'll get these put back together. I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, if you care to understand crossovers, there's plenty of information out there on the internet that can explain it to you. In most cases, a well-designed, proper crossover, higher order is usually a benefit to a speaker. A lot of companies don't do it because the more of these components you add to the crossover, it raises cost, especially inductors, because they're just big coils of copper. Get him back in there properly. Now, I was hearing, when I listened to these the first time, I'll do a bass test, and I was hearing a bit of chirping. So I'm assuming that's got to be because there's no gasket on the back side of this. And even though a lot of times ported speakers are, ported, they're not airtight or anything, there is still positive and negative pressure inside the cabinet going on, and you can get air leaks around a driver. It will still cause, like, I call it it's like this slight chirping sound of air being forced out and back, sucked back in a tiny little pinhole, and it will make a noise. If it keeps doing it, now that I've seen there's no gasket behind this tweeter, I might pop those back out and put a bit of a gasket. Sometimes you can just take a piece of yarn, nice thick puffy yarn, and put it in a circle around there and tighten it down. Or if you got some small thin foam around like this, or piece of thin, really paper, thin cardboard, cut it a circle, and a little teeny circle and lay it back there. Sometimes it might be enough. But let's get these put back together and then hook them up and have a listen. There we go. Yeah, I'm also surprised that there's no damping in there. I mean, Micca, I'm assuming Micca measured these. They obviously, felt it didn't need it. I believe Joe and Tell measured these too with the Rue, which I could do as well, I guess. and they had a good response. So. See, the other weird thing, when these were tightened down from the factory, get this closer, you can see where the screw holes are in the MDF, how the screws really suck that MDF up to a point. So it's not flat anymore, because the backside of this woofer frame is hollow, it's like cupped. So it makes the gasket not really want to lay in there properly. So that's not cool either. I mean, I know they don't plan on people taking these apart, but since I'm having an air leak issue, it's not giving me good confidence either. Especially since this just does not want to lay back in here correctly. Well, if I have to, I can make a new gasket for them. I have to possibly count that against the Micca, because I don't know if that could lead to quality control issues the way that gasket's set up in there. Okie dokie. We're gonna take the grills off. We don't need those right now. Alright. It's gonna be it for now. I'm gonna get them hooked up and get ready to listen to music. That's gonna be a separate part 2, just kind of keep the videos broke up. It looks like, you know, this one's already been long enough, so if you're interested in the sound demo and hearing these up against the Sony SSCS5 and the Pioneer BS22, come back for part 2. Thanks guys, good night.